What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to jump in and take a look at the new Ikelos SMG. This is the one which of course comes from the Escalation protocol. So this weapon is actually available from the boss this week, and this is the big guy that you have to take the shields off with the swords. It's a pretty interesting weapon. It's worth me mentioning that this weapon should also be available from some of the other bosses in the Escalation protocol. There will be a couple of bosses that can drop any of the weapons. But for now, let's take a look at this new SMG inside of the Warmind expansion. So obviously starting out is a pretty cool looking weapon, pretty unique, themed around the Warmind tech. To talk about the perks, this is an aggressive frame SMG, so it's the new archetype which is 750 rounds per minute. High damage, high recoil, deals bonus damage at close range. So the other SMGs that are actually in this family would include the Huckleberry, and as well as this there is one called the Imminent Storm, and this is one of the PvP SMGs. So there are a couple in this class, but obviously this is one of a small number. For the barrel options though, we have corkscrew rifling, fluted barrel, and then we've got small bore. Small bore is going to offer you the best stability and range pretty much, and then you have a fluted barrel, and fluted barrel is going to give you very, very good handling on this SMG. So I've kind of been messing around with that. The key kind of trait bonus though is disruption break. Breaking an enemy shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic precision damage for a brief period. So that is a pretty unique perk. When you take the shield of an enemy off, what it does is it gives you a small boost to the precision damage. Drewski actually made a video about this as well, and the damage buff is around about 50% that you get. So it's not a huge amount of damage, but I would say it's a significant amount of damage. I'll talk more about that perk in a moment. But the SMG also has SERAPH rounds. Rounds over penetrate targets and bounce off hard surfaces, so it's basically ricochet rounds. We've got Grave Robber, melee kills reload a portion of the magazine, and Threat Detector, increased reload stability and handling when enemies are in close proximity. So to talk briefly about how the weapon performs overall, it is a solid SMG. Of course, back in March, we did see a buff to SMGs in PvE content, and so in general, this weapon is definitely benefiting from that. The 750 RPM archetype also appears to be pretty solid in the Crucible. Of course, you do have those really good PvP SMGs like Anti-OP. That is still an absolute beast. It's definitely much easier to control as a more precise weapon if you're playing on console in particular. And then you have the 900 round per minute, things like Hero's Burden, which is really, really good, and they shred at very, very close range. So I guess really this one is somewhere in the middle. But in terms of the stats specific to the Ikelos SMG, it does have by a long shot the best handling that you'll get on any of the three SMGs in this class. It's also a very solid stat in general. As well as this, the range on the Ikelos SMG is pretty good. You do have at least a few points more than the other ones in this archetype. And then in terms of stability, it is pretty typical of what you would see on other SMGs in the class. And these things do have a bit of recoil. Of course, there is a difference between the PC and the console version. Using it on console, it does have a lot of kick, so some energy counterbalance mods actually might be pretty good on this thing. But back to that perk Disruption Break, and it's a pretty interesting one because, you know, versus some of the other damage buffs, you have things like Rampage and Kill Clip, and they kind of apply to the weapon. So, you know, you make a kill, and then you've got bonus damage, and you can stack it up with things like Rampage. But with this SMG, it applies to the target that you're actually hitting. So when you break that target shield, that's when you get bonus damage on that target. And like I said before, it is around about 50%, but of course you don't carry the benefit that you see on some of the other damage bonuses where you can actually use it against multiple targets. Another interesting thing is that it doesn't display this in the tooltip or anything like that, so when the perk actually procs, you aren't told that it's procced, which is kind of interesting. So where is this actually good? Well, if you're in PvE content, you know, dealing with a tanky target on your own, anything that has a shield, it could be a yellow bar, whether it's in patrol or the raid, dealing with stuff like that, of course, you know, this is going to be beneficial. And that's pretty much the main kind of use case that I've found personally. I have used it a little bit in PvP, and it is an interesting bonus. Most of the time, if you take an opponent's shield off, you're probably good to just kill them anyway. And that's kind of what I noticed a lot of the time. The SMG does actually shred, but I'm not really utilizing that bonus all that much. Of course, there can be instances where maybe you get the shield off, you run out of ammo and you need to switch weapon, and maybe you're peeking a line of sight in close range or something, you manage to take their shield off, recover, switch weapons, and then, you know, get a headshot on them or something, you get that bonus damage. Absolutely, there are times that this perk will work, and it definitely does do work when it goes off, but personally, I would have to rate, you know, bonuses like Rampage and Kill Clip. I think most of the time, I'm personally gonna prefer those bonuses over what we get on this SMG, but that's just my personal opinion. Of course, there are the other bonuses as well. Ricochet rounds is actually going to help with that range, so that's definitely a boon for this thing. And the couple of different options you have as traits as well. Grave Robber doesn't necessarily synergize with the shield break perk super well, but of course it can be useful in general. There is also Threat Detector, increased reload, stability, and handling when enemies are in close proximity, which would probably be my choice pretty much all of the time on the weapon, because of course, especially if you want to utilize the trait, this will actually be somewhat beneficial in that it's helping you land all of your rounds onto a target, and also the handling as well is going to make it easier to switch to the kinetic weapon to carry on doing damage. Either way though, I do think it's an interesting weapon. It's nice to have some unique bonuses. Out of the weapons we've had so far from Escalation Protocol, of course the SMG and the shotgun, I've got to say I think the shotgun is quite a bit better, or at least if I'm looking at it as far as that main perk goes, I think the shotgun is quite a lot more exciting. However, like I said, and as you can see in some of the gameplay, the SMG is pretty solid. Had some fun with it in PvP without really utilizing that trait perk all that much. Of course, that isn't the only bonus on the weapon though. So those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know down below if you've managed to pick up this SMG. If you have enjoyed the video though, a like is very much appreciated below. If you're new to this channel, be sure to hit subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all of the new content in Destiny 2 going forward. Also check out my sponsor Into the AM for some awesome shirts. They do really cool hoodies, hats, bandanas, whole bunch of accessories, even Overwatch League shirts, and you can save 10% in the store by using code HOUNDISH. The link for that will be in the description below. For now though, I appreciate you guys as always, and I will catch you very soon.